This is Larry Sprunk, and the following is the completion of the interview that I had with Mr. and Mrs. Minard Halverson of Lisbon, North Dakota. The interview was held in the Halverson home in Lisbon Tuesday, October 1st, 1974, and it began at approximately 3 o'clock in the afternoon. On the flip side of this cassette is the interview that I had with W.R. Ralph Humphrey of Lisbon, North Dakota, and the interview with Mr. Humphrey was held in his home in Lisbon Tuesday, October 1st, 1974, and it began at approximately 7:30 in the evening.
But saying I learned the hardware business well.
Lots more people there. The next lesson isn't coming, so we'll be quiet.
I enjoy this. Good. But they called me up from Kalahari. In fact, Mr. Higgins was a millionaire, and my kids used to call him Uncle Higgins because we ought to go and get the family up and down on a trip and take us out on the boat, the lake, last night's cabin cruiser, sleep about 6-7 people in it, but we were just not through. But they called me up. I said, Minard, we got a store in Jamestown, and it's an estate and we want to clean it up. You will sign a note for $6,000. There isn't much left in the store. If you will sign a note for $6,000 so we clean up the estate, we'll put merchandise in there, and there's a good manager up there. What is that? A man that go the one he had before, and he got a wiggle. So he said, if you're calling from Jamestown, if you'll agree to sign a note for $6,000 from the state, the store is yours. So I just thought for a minute. I thought, well, I won't lose anything. So I said, okay. And it doesn't seem as though in half an hour, Jamestown is 90 miles from here. If they walk in the front door, there's no. So I entered the store. Well, I had this manager up there, and he'd call up every once. Why don't you come out in the store? And I said, well, nothing you need is there. I said, order it out if you need it. I said, I'm busy down here. Well, I took that darn thing and had it about 4 years. And this fellow was like I said, a good hardware. I never lost her lease. In fact, I tried to buy it from a lady who owned the place, and this white drug company wanted the building pretty bad. See, well, she promised to sell it to me. There was another store in there, and I was to pay her $18,000 for it. And I went to the bank. The bank said, we'll loan you the money if you pay us the loan. And gosh, I came up on Friday and drove home my way, and I'd gone over to the lady and give her a couple $1,000 into the deal for it. So I lost that, and we had to close out. But 4 years ahead of it, I walked out of there with $26,000. So, and that's snap judgment.
Right.
But knowing the hardware business, I said, well, we can make it 10 times a good time. And when we sold out, two fellows walked in and they wanted to go in the hardware business, and there was a building vacant on the other side of the street, so we sold it to them. And I got about $26,000 in inventory. I took a check for it. That, of course, helped a little more with the kids, sending them to school. But
I wanted to ask you, Minard, do you think that anything else could have been done in the 30s? I mean, you said people liked Roosevelt because he was giving money out. Could any other program, any other policy have been instituted in the 30s that would have put the country back on its feet without this kind of handing out of money or these work projects?
well, you take this country here was so dry that they had to have something like that. But the thing is, he kept on too long with the program. When we started getting back on our feet, he should have cut off. But then he had this building program. The government was going to do this and for that. And then, of course, with the war coming on. And you could see that coming.
Yeah.
And today, I believe that Roosevelt just slipped that fleet in there and let the Japanese bomb. Well, they should have had Halsey was out with his carrier fleet, and that Japanese fleet was only 150 miles off from the Hawaiian Islands when they bombed up Pearl Harbor. But if Roosevelt had had any brains, if he wanted the war, so he didn't have to have it that serious, you see. If that fleet was out there and I were president, I would order my fleet to go out there and sink them. Just like, wouldn't you?
I wouldn't have let them get that
No,
close.
and they had to be that close because a land-based plane can't fly over 150, 300 miles with a load. And that's what happened.
Now, you mentioned something in the other room, Minard, that I wanted to pursue quite a bit further with you. The politics of the teens and 20s and 30s. Can you tell me just how things developed politically in Ransom County?
Well, the thing that happened, Lemke and Bill Langer, and who was the other one? There was the third one. Townley. They proceeded to organize the farmers.
Now, when was this? When did it all start?
Well, it started about 1916. That would be about that was the time that we got looked. And they organized these farmers well, as I told you. The farmers outnumbered the people in the town 2-1. We had 11,000 people in Ransom County, and we had about 1,800 in Lisbon, and England had about 1,800 and 3,600, so you can see the leverage they had against us. And of course the farmers went with it. It was nothing more than a socialistic move, it was all.
Did it start before you went in the service? I mean, was it happening before you left for the service?
It was happening, yeah.
But not to the extent that it later developed? Or did it peak out?
It kept getting worse. It got so that when we got back out of service, well, they almost had riots, you see. As the farmers were so, they had them built up to such a point that they were, death against the town. And,
Was that, why was there that animosity between farmers and businessmen? Because the businessmen weren't with the Nonpartisan League, or was there?
Their politics was wrong. It was a socialistic move. It was get rid of the business and have, the farmers go into business from be your own business. It was just socialistic. In other words, like our government is pretty much today. You can't move unless you ask the government about it. And further it goes, and that's the way it worked here. Then we finally broke it down. And we got so, well, I got pretty familiar with John Gray, and he was our county auditor. And they had their whole crew. It was all the county officers were even the state's attorney was
NPL.
Yeah. So, when John Gray got in there, and I got pretty familiar with him. He liked alcohol pretty well, and he didn't know the bootlegger, and I did know him. So he'd come down with Minard there. This bootlegger used to carry the red can, so gasoline can, with the bottom cut out, and stuff it down in the bottom. So would you call so-and-so and tell them to deliver me a gallon of gasoline? He brought right in the office with it, too. And took the can out and charged $20 a can for it. It was alcohol, distilled in Wisconsin or in the East or something. And I got very friendly with him, and in 1927, then, he said, you run for county clerk. Well, I said, I could have did it. You run anyhow. So I ran, contrary to that, got it. And my brother Harris, he's passed away now, wasn't doing anything at the time, so Tom says, what's the difference? Halverson? Halverson. Let your brother run the office. You run the store. You stop once a day on your way home to dinner, and that's it. You run at the office. So that's the way, and I run 1 or 2 terms, and I was in business on Main Street and still kind of
Well, did you run on the straight Republican ticket then?
Mm-hmm.
And the NPL was still also running on
Oh,
it?
yeah. He wanted to get the eye out that was in there. And, well, he even took me on, out in the country, I didn't have, he even took me along on Sunday out to these big picnics, we used to have, Minard. This is the guy we want next year. So,
Now, this was great.
that is great.
Oh, what was his first name?
John, he was state tax commissioner for a number of years.
So-
After he left here.
So, Minard, was he one of the first Republicans who was able to successfully beat an NPL opponent for a county's,
No, he was an MPL.
oh, he
And I
was?
was the first guy that licked him.
Oh, I see.
He got me on to, and that kind of broke things open, and people started to see the light that we were all still away from 21.
Yeah.
And then these people, these farmers come into the store, and I did a business, I had a very good business. Kept 5 men going all the time, and
But you didn't run on the Nonpartisan League ticket?
no, I ran, that'd be no party tickets.
Right.
That is, county is a no party ticket. But,
Oh, I see, yeah, right, okay, yeah.
well, no, it's Republican and Democrat, sure. Some school situation is no party or judges, but the county is Republican and Democrat. Yeah, I run on the straight Republican ticket.
Did Gray get himself in trouble with the other?
No, and boy, my business went on and increased. Harris was up the office, and he was a good fellow, everybody liked him,
Yeah.
Making a difference while I was there now. Had your deputy there. So I kept the store going, and then he ran himself, and got to see it,
When the Nonpartisan League went with the Democratic Party, did most people who had been Nonpartisan League supporters stay with the Republican Party, or did most of them in Ransom County go with the Nonpartisan League too?
No, there was a percentage state Republican. See, we were pretty much a Republican state.
Mhm. Has this been a very strong Republican area historically?
This area has been strong. Fargo has gone the other way.
Mhm.
I'm surprised.
How is it
There's labor
coming
up
in?
there, you see, I don't know how many they figured they had, 31,000. I think the last figures in Fargo, the labor's, people that are working.
Mhm.
And of course, they go for where they think they can get something out of something.
How do things stand in Ransom County now? Or I shouldn't say Ransom County, but around Lisbon, this area. Is it still very strong Republican? Is it?
Well, no, but, see, Young had 700 and some votes, and Guy had 600 and some. So, you see, there's, well, I think this Nixon deal probably
Hurt.
hurt. No, it's been a good life. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed Lisbon. Done a lot of work for it. Gave them a lot of money. I was in various projects. In fact, the Catholic trade is very good. I'm a Lutheran.
Say, that reminds me, I wanted to ask you, Minard. Down the street, one block, and I think further that way, there's a St. Aloysius School. Is that still open?
No, all they do now, there's two sisters there, and they teach Sunday school here in the Enderlin and Verona. They have a Sunday school once a day, and they live here in this. And then the Knights of Columbus use the basement for their room.
Oh, I see.
So they haven't been in school.
When was that school in operation?
Well, it's been about 10 years now since they quit.
Oh, it lasted that long,
Oh,
though.
yeah.
When was that started? Was there a parochial Catholic?
No, that started about the time I went into business in 1927. No, it started earlier than that. It started while I was still working for Wickstrom. And the Catholic nuns would come into the store, and I was very gracious and tried to wait on them and got them on my side. And they wouldn't, when I was clerking there then,
Yeah.
but they turned the store in once, where's Minard? Once a minute. So we sold them all the equipment for their basement. Say for the big ovens and things. The kids lived there too, you know.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
It was a boarding school.
Yeah, one floor was girls on one side and girls on the other. So and then they cooked all their meals. They had two of these big double oven coal-wood stove. Well, went along till they figured that they had money enough to change over to electric stoves. So they disbanded all their coal-wood stuff, put electric water heaters and electric stove and all electric equipment in. Well, the nurses come up, the sister come up to see Minard. And I was in the store then myself. So I furnished all the electrical equipment for the changeover. That went on.
Was it an elementary school, boarding school, or?
It was up to 8th grade. And then this Sister Louise, she used to come down to the store quite often. She was the lady who took care of the cooking and looked after all that. And she'd come down and order stuff and I'd come down in the basement, and they were very, very good friends. And one day I was just kidding her. I said, Sister Louise, I said, do you remember in West France there was a fellow standing leaning on a light post over there? And she couldn't quite get what I meant. What I meant was, no. I said, well, you know, he was standing there when you left West France. I said, and he's still there. And I was just kidding her. And I said, oh, you're so funny. And when she retired there, we had a gathering for her, and we gave her money enough. That was after we got out of the store. Money enough to take a trip back to West France, so she could go to her hometown. And then Father Donnie, who was a very good friend of mine, I had an operation about it's about 9 years ago now. And I was over St. Francis in Moorhead. My son-in-law's brother's doctor was head of the institution of Dr. Hugh Thornton. You probably heard of him. He's in the medical arts building, the new building they built up there. He's one of the promoters in that. So I went up and had this operation. And when I got back in about a week. The boys on the street about my age, come on and said, what do you got on Father Donnie? I said, why? Well, he said, he said a mass for you last Sunday in church.
Is that right?
Yeah. And he always used to say, I'll trust the good Lutheran more than I'll trust the Catholic.
What element in Lisbon's population made up the Catholic congregation? Were there Catholic Germans here or Catholic Irish?
Catholic Germans and Irish and foreign countries. And like the Walters family, I think they're Germans and nice people. In fact, Eleanor, the oldest girl, was 2 and 3 of them living here. And they had coffee parties, you know,
Yeah.
every day off on Thursday. She'd have them up here. I've always got along well with the Catholic group. In fact, better than the Lutheran group. In fact, I got in bad when they built this church up here. I thought, well, you got to use your judgment. I said, you know, $450,000 is a lot of dough for the people you have. Now, if I wasn't for it, I was
Against it.
I was out here on the periphery.
Yeah.
So I haven't been very kind. In fact, we were giving my family that time about $700 a year to the church. So I said, well, that's a good amount. It's what I would do. So we can see this idea of, you know, this Jewish people over in Israel. They have a crippled children's hospital over there. And you can adopt one of those kids for $10 a month. We took 3 of them. And we paid $400 a year over there to that hospital to take care of those kids. We could have just put them jamming over here, but we figured our money was doing something with it.
Yeah.
I've even had our pastor come down to me and tell me I'm doing the wrong thing. I should get up to the church. I said, listen, mister, it's my money, and I'm sending it where I know it's doing some good.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. So we were still out on the periphery.
Sure. Yeah.
But, you know, having lived here and know the people, and well, you're in the hole up there now. You know, we've got $125,000, $30,000 to pay on that. And we had $175 in the building fund when we started. If it had cut it down to size, you know, say around $300,000, we'd have paid for it.
Yeah.
Now you can ask me some more questions.
Okay, Minard, I wanted to ask you before when we were in the other room talking, how in the world you could have excursion boats that would carry that many people on the Sheyenne River? Was it a deeper river then?
Well, I'll tell you what's happened to the river. You see, that was back in 1914,
Yeah.
12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And that was before we had, all the fields went plowed. We had grass and things on the riverbanks. It didn't come down to the edge of the river and plow everything up.
Yeah.
And the farmers were very good. They weren't throwing anything in. You could go down there in that river and you could see fish swimming in the river. Today you can't.
No way.
And the river, the mill ran on water power from April 1st until November 1st. So you can see they were pulling the water instead of going over the dam, it was going through the spoon.
Sure.
And running the mill and water power. But then we got these heavy rains and the farmers were plowing down to the river bank and all the plowing up all this grass.
Yeah.
And then all the dirt, you can go up the river there now and get stuck in a rowboat. It's just all filled up with junk.
Yeah.
They used to dive off from the bridge down here on the north end of town.
Is that right?
And we had one of those overhanging bridges.
Yeah.
And fellows would swim down there and they'd high dive off there.
Yeah.
And now if you dove after that, you never would come back. You just couldn't. You couldn't all the way down. It's the river was just beautiful. Trees, along there.
Has that been a gradual deterioration?
Yeah, gradual deterioration over the years. It just, like I say, there was more prairie then. There wasn't. If we got a heavy rain, we weren't getting it all into the river. The way it is now, some of these fields along there, we get these heavy rains, or those ditches that deep, where the water is going down through this coulee. Where's it go?
Yeah.
It goes in the river.
Has the dam up at Valley City messed up the Cheyenne as far as?
Well, that's been a bad deal. We're dry down here.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a better water going over our dam down here now at all. And they have to hold it up. Then in the spring, we get floods.
Yeah.
Because they have to let it out of theirs.
Yeah.
And Kindred, that Kindred Dam, when they started that, they wanted to build that Kindred Dam for a flood control. Well, I told those guys, you're nuts. I hope I don't get too much swearing on there.
Oh, no, you haven't even started.
Like Nixon. But you see what would happen. Valley City dumps their stuff. Minard River gets up, so it's way up under the bridge here in the spring. And you let things go and all the snow and everything goes out. Well, what would happen, sure, that dam would fill up and they'd have to leave it go and probably would have a worse flood situation they have.
Yeah, it wouldn't help, it would hurt.
I told them up in Fargo this. I said, I went up to Fargo in spring. It was, my brother-in-law passed away, and it was right in the worst part of the season was melted. And the Red River along 18 was flooded. So I drove up the Alice Road, or the Kindred Road, and took number 94 in. Actually, where they were getting flooded was from Maple River and the Wild Rice River, because they don't have any banks, when they would fill. Well, that water from Maple, from where Maple River is, there was on the north side of the road, there was a stream there, 200 foot wide, running right into Fargo. And they couldn't say that was from the Cheyenne.
Yeah.
And the Cheyenne wasn't even flooding West Fargo.
Yeah.
But they wanted to build that for flood control.
What they wanted was a lake we could make a fish in.
Yeah, I don't see why we should ruin all that country.
Yeah.
We need trees,
That's
we need
right.
wildlife spots in the state.
Every time you build one of those small lakes behind a dam, the trees all die and they stick up in the water and they look ugly. Yeah.
Yeah, and those are things you've had to fight. We put a lot of money into things here in the community. In fact, going back now to say, for instance, in my business there, I had so much money I could give every year, take it out of my income tax, and you don't find many people who would do that. But I did. I had a fellow who used to come down from the Internal Revenue Service in Fargo, and he did my work. Because we used to invite him up for supper, and he stayed at the hotel. Well, then I took my books home with me in 20 minutes, so he had nice money made out because I had every month right down total. So he said, you give your 10%, don't you? I said, well, I figured it's helping the community, so why not give it? And that's what I did all these years when I was making money.
Minard, I wanted to ask you, how, looking back to when you came to Lisbon, what periods have been good periods or good eras for Lisbon from 1906 on up to 1974? Have there been good times?
Well, yes. Now you take from 1906 on, Lisbon kept growing and expanding, and farmers were making little money. Not big farming, they were farming with gang plow and milking cows. And then we come into the era where we go into the Depression years, and that started along about 25, and went on to 29, and we were only getting 50 cents a bushel for wheat. We had plenty of crop, but we had nothing for it.
Yeah.
Cattle were cheap. You could buy pigs at 5 cents a pound, and that hurt. But I kept my business going, and then we went into 27, 29 to 32. I did very well. I had a big, big bunch of customers, and they spent their money with me. That was what they had. And in 34, that's when our Depression came out. And we had 3 bad years then.
Did that hurt the town?
That hurt the town. We lost people, see. But we didn't hurt the town as much. It hurt the farms. As I'd say, half of the farmers moved out. They went where they could get to work, there was nothing there. And then when the war came on, of course, we lost another thing. But what I want to tell you now about the home. On this place I have here, I have 3 lots. And there was a house 70 foot long.
Is that right?
It was built sort of cut in 3 pieces. And our druggist who was with him, and he owned it. Well, it had sat here for about 2 or 3 years. He had died, and she went to a home in Pleasant, I guess is a Masonic home. And the boys went west to Montreal. Well, they never kept up their taxes. And of course, during that period, you know, there was a lot of stuff that could be bought up for taxes. So I went up to the courthouse and checked this property. And there was $750 in taxes against it. So I told the attorney, I said, I'll tell you what I'd do. I had a couple of carpenters sitting in the store, and I said, I'm going to have a lot here. So I went up to the attorney and told him that I'd give him $1,000 for this corner. Well, he said, well, I can't promise you, but I'll wire Parker. And about 11 o'clock, he called me up and he said, you can have it for $1,050. And I brought a check up to the factory security. And then I told the carpenters, 2 of the top carpenters in town, and nothing good when they paid them 75 cents an hour for tag labor then. I said, well, I can start turning it down. We got a piece of property up here. And the attorney had a paraphernalia with abstracts and stuff. So I went home and told Eleanor, I said, well, you've always wanted a house. We've driven around town and all this house looks good. But you never say, buy it. This house looks good. Couldn't get you to say yes. But I said, hurry up and eat your dinner now. We've got to look the parking house over there in this bucket. You know, those 2 guys went up there from 11 o'clock. By 1 o'clock, when we got here, they had the whole inside of the trash truck. It was just ripped the walls out.
Yeah.
And that's how then I started building this new home. I built this in 41. Started in April and finished about December. We moved in December 22nd. We had an enormous crop, and they had to have storage for grain storage. So they come up here and they come down to the store and they say, well, we'd like to buy some of that lumber. I said, I have nothing to do with it. I said, I told the carpenter to tear it down and sell it. And there was a barn on there. We used to have horses in those days too.
Yeah.
And so when we tore the whole building down, everything completed, I had $1,700 in lumber I sold out there.
Was that
I paid $1,000.
Yeah.
And that you can see how bad off we were.
Yeah.
I could have bought the house across the street, Asperger Heights, for $600. And we were just coming out,
Yeah.
just coming out. My color, Next year, then things will boost it.
Yeah.
Trip on the city. Not to worry, but I caught it just the right time.
When did Lisbon get electrical power?
Oh, we had a, not only other town, there was Midwest Electric came in here and started a little plant down here. That must have been 1916, 17, 18, something like that. Or maybe a little earlier, I don't know what the year.
Was that a 32 volt or was it?
No, that was 110.
10.
And they put in these diesel motors, you know, that they were put in. And then, of course, every time we got a snowstorm, the lines would break down or all the juice.
Yeah.
I sold more Aladdin lamps in this town. There's one in every home. You know.
Yeah.
And then Otter Tail came back. And then we had a little better service.
Was that in the 30s, 20s?
No, they come in, I'd say they come in the 30s. And they took over the whole area.
Operation.
And see, they were in Jamestown. And then they connected up to see through here down to Curtis Falls. And but they were trying to run this plant before they got the thing hooked up.
Mm-hmm.
They put in a larger motor, diesel, but that wouldn't carry the town. So when thing happened to the plant down there, we were out of juice.
Yeah.
And of course we didn't have at that time many heating units were running, but electricity was too cold. In 1941, they were getting hooked up then in 41, but see, when I was in the hospital in St. Paul, I had done about 2 weeks in the hospital. So we didn't have any surgeons here. If you needed surgery, that's where you went. We didn't need it, so I was done in 2 weeks. Well, I was gone. I had a sleet storm and knocked everything out. So I was actually moved up here. But now, we're hooked up now, so we can have a sleet storm. We're still on. They cut us in. We may be out for an hour, or maybe be out for half an hour. Cut us in. And then we have three men stationed here all the time. We live right here.
How about the telephone now? Has that been...
Telephone has been in, it was here when we first came.
Oh. Well, it wasn't hooked up to a rural line, though.
No, rural had their own battery. Telephone with two these dry cells.
Yeah.
But they connected up with, you could get in, we were hooked up with the Northwestern Bell, we could call the town, and they could call out to us, but we furnished our own juice and our phone.
Was it a Bell line then already?
No, it was
Privately.
Privately owned. We built it ourselves. When we was out on the farm.
So telephone has been here for...
That was here when we first came.
1900 and 1902.
1905. I was here before that. Would you like another shot of coffee?
Yeah, I love one. How about the...
better step it up a little bit. What did you say?
How about the Opera House now? You mentioned that was a hotbed of entertainment. And I was wondering when that had been... That was probably built back in...
That was here when we came here. That must have been built back in... That's one of the old stores in town. Both that and the Sandy's store down there. We didn't know it like another piece of cake. Sandiger's store, that was here when we first came here. The Opera House was here. And they used to have some pretty good shows. See, the penny store, there used to be a stairway, a big stairway, about 12-foot stairway, went right up to the center of the building. And of course, that was, had to have something like that in case of fire. You see, they had fire escapes there, but I'd made space enough so people could get out. That was closed up now, and the penny store had a double door in front of it. But they had nice opera seats up there. We had some pretty good shows.
Were they touring shows?
Oh, yes. They come in here and stay a week, put on a different show at night. And another group would come in, stay a week, and used to, boy.
Do you have any idea, Minard, how that was built, if there was a levy for the town that was constructed?
No,
Yeah.
that was built out of private concern.
Would he rent it then, or to touring companies, or to the
Yeah,
community?
they paid so much, and of course they come in, you got so much from them, but we had to buy our tickets. And of course that paid for the show and for the rent of the office and everything, just the way we do now. In many other business. But it's one thing that they should have kept up. Sort of
Yeah,
had
right.
its historical spot.
Right. When did that, is it still there?
Yes.
Are the seats still in it and
No,
everything?
they're up there.
Oh.
It's been all tore up.
Uh-huh.
They should have, well, if they'd had people like my wife and two, three other people in town, they would have had it as sort of a, museum or something like that.
Heritage Center.
Yeah.
Was that used for the first movies in town then, too?
No, the movies were down on Main Street, and they went into town.
When was that theater built that's used now?
Well, that was built back around 13, 14, something like that.
That early, huh? But there was another theater on the north end of town before?
Yeah, and he bought it out. I mean, people
But, yeah,
still hot.
just, first cup here. Give you some more something?
I just got some more.
Good for you. Can I give you some more cake?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Well, I'll give piano lessons, it's a lot of fun. I think every year, I ought to quit, but then I've missed.
What was your first name?
Larry.
Larry.
Yeah.
I told Larry all about our house, how we got it built.
How we
Another
really
thing-
made a bargain there.
Yeah, yeah.
Another thing, lot 4 over there, they never bought that, they just plotted on it. So I had to have a special abstract made up to really make it mine.
Uh-huh.
I paid $75 for that. But they just plotted on the, no sign, never buying it.
Yeah.
So,
Say, another thing just occurred to me, Minard. I wanted to ask you if the IWW, the Workers of the World, did they ever...
They reached that race too.
just happened, but they never bought this much. They pulled off down to the depot.
Where was the jungle?
The jungle was down, well, you've been down where where the ready-mix plant is and
Yeah.
the seed house down there.
Yeah.
It was just off in the riverbank. There was a bunch of trees down in there, some houses built down in there. That's where they jungled up, right by the railroad.
Uh-huh. Were there a lot of them traveling through?
Well, the harvest time,
Yeah.
yeah. But otherwise, we never had any trouble. We'd go down there and visit.
Oh, we kids were scared. We were.
Isn't that strange that those